Everybody get up, no need to cram now. We got a real jam going down, going down, going down, going down, going down, going down. Welcome to the IntelliJAMS.
How's it going, dude?
Good. I have clearly made it back home, as you can tell from my amazing background.
I can see that. I also never know if I'm going to be the first to talk or you want to be the first to talk or who says hi first. But I'm excited.
I always rely on you to be the one who breaks the we're jamming into actually talking.
We're jamming. I'm not one for silence. I think that something that I work on actively, both in internal and external meetings, is being comfortable with silence.
We will do a jam on how to deal with silence at some point, or find a way to relate it into testing. But what do you want to jam on today, Adam?
Okay, so what I want to jam on today has to do with my discomfort for silence, I guess, which is when you want to always be doing something, figuring out how to prioritize what are the things that we ought to be doing. And I like to think about this as an equation. And so there's all the different types of tests and personalizations that you can do on your store. And people often ask, like, how do I prioritize? What do I do in what order? And so the equation or the math formula that I want to frame up here, and it's not really a formula, is that there's like additive things, there's multiplicative things, and there's exponent things. And unlike order of operations, traditionally PEMDAS, I would say you want to always be doing some of these things in parallel. You can actually create swim lanes to do them. And so we'll talk a little bit, I want to talk about all the things that fall into these addition, multiplication, exponent buckets, and then how to do them in parallel.
The one thing that... So PEMDAS, I'm struggling on whether that's an American thing or if, like, in Canada we call it BEDMAS as like the how to do the order of operations, and I'm wondering if that's a Canadian thing or if PEMDAS is an American thing. Like, which of these is more? In the comments, if you're from a different country, not Canada or the US, tell us which one it is. But
I studied math in college, and so I would say that PEMDAS both applied in elementary school and in college. So I want to say that it's pretty universally accepted in America. We have a math teacher on the team. I will ask him.
True. We can get an answer to this. Okay. Equation though. Prioritization. One of the most common questions I get is like, hey, should I wait for something to be done before I start the next thing? So let's talk about this equation. So you said addition, multiplication, exponential. These are the areas that we have.
Yeah. And I think these can be both personalizations and A/B tests. But I think the like nuance to me is like, what is the magnitude of the impact? And also usually higher impact things are also bigger rocks or require more inertia. And so they're not necessarily going to be as quick hit. And so you have the plus ones, that's the addition. That's like, let me test something small, like an image, like a placement, like some content. Let me do a quick hit personalization and show a banner or a pop-up if you click through some specific ad or campaign. So that's like the quick plus ones. The multiplication is like, hey, I want to do some sort of optimization here. I want to figure out how to optimize my welcome offer. I want to figure out how to add an upsell at checkout, a volume discount, my free shipping threshold. These are things that like have a meaningful impact on the business. They are a little bit more friction to ideate and set up and analyze in the right way, but they're high impact. And then the exponent things, these are things that are super multidimensional. Like, whereas a welcome offer is not very multidimensional. It's like, new visitors get this welcome offer. Multidimensional will be like your product's pricing. That's going to have a tremendous amount of knock-on effects, including things that go beyond the site. And we've had this phrase of like, go beyond the page. It's going to affect your ad spend. It's going to affect your margins. It's going to affect potentially you find lowering price increases your volume. You then turn that into higher MOQs, which then turns into lower costs. I mean, that's where you get exponential changes to your business, is things like changing your pricing, changing your overall company discounting strategies, changing your sale and promotion and holiday strategies. Those are the exponents. So you've got your addition, your multiplication, and your exponential things. You can parallel path these. And I think everyone should be parallel pathing because they run at different speeds and they have different impacts.
I really like this equation. Let's quickly like define let me say this back to you, make sure we have these three categories correct, and then let's talk about how to parallel path these things. Because I think one of the most common questions I get, I'm sure you get it all the time as well, is, hey, Alex, I'm already running X. I also want to do Y. Should I wait for this to be done? Should I run this at the same time? What's next? But let's give a little bit of clarification here. So these plus ones are those smaller changes, and let's call these like tied to a specific spot. I think that like when we say plus one, it's like, hey, it lives on this particular page for this particular experience. Anything I find here is going to help me in the context of that very specific experience or that very specific place.
I like that.
When we get into the multiplier, this is where it has now moved from beyond that specific spot. So in a example that you gave, your welcome offer, like your welcome offer could be triggered from a bunch of different entry points on a bunch of different pages. It is not scoped to like an individual specific place. Obviously, that's going to have more upside than finding a win that is tied to a very specific page or spot. And then we have the exponents, which are, hey, these are expanding beyond that individual page across the site and might actually even expand beyond the site into other business things. So we have another podcast going called Probably Worth Testing, and Cam shared that he's using IntelliJAMS to figure out, should I let people buy on Amazon or should I force them to go into my Shopify funnel? And he's basically figuring out, how do I apply my ad spend to these different groups, which obviously is something that is not specific to even the site.
Yeah. So actually, the way you framed that, I framed it as addition, multiplication, and exponential. Could also be framed as like point, linear, and multidimensional, right? So you have sort of like, I don't know if you ever read the book Flat World. I actually think that's a Canadian Flatland. And it's basically about shapes that live in 2 dimensions and can't see in the 3rd dimension. They encounter the first 3-dimensional. They can't even like wrap their head around what it means to be 3-dimensional. And so it's sort of like we're playing a little bit with dimensions.
But I know I've heard this concept before.
Yeah. I had to read Flatland in high school. It was a highly recommend. Next Audible book.
I will pick it up. All right. So we have these 3 different pieces of the equation. We have these different planes that they are on, however we want to nerd out about this. Which of these, I guess like question number 1 is, which of these is most important, or is one more important than the other? And then let's move into, how do we keep these things going at the same time to maximize our value?
Yeah. I think that the exponential things are probably the highest impact and the most important. And I'll probably live and die on that hill, which is that exponential changes to your business are the things that you want to be prioritizing and putting effort behind. And if that's all you end up doing, I think that's probably okay. Although it's probably suboptimal. It would kind of be like, hey, I don't have a good analogy. I was thinking about something with my bike, and it's like not putting something on your chains to make it lube on your chains, but I don't know what the analogy is.
A certain type of lube is probably, like you can probably use that as the analogy. It's like, hey, new tires are probably going to do more for your speed than a different type of lube on the chain is going to. It's not to say it's not going to help. Probably gets you 0.5%, a watt for those cyclists out there, but not going to be anything completely game changing. But hey, if you're looking for incremental gains, that watt or 0.5% might be meaningful.
Yeah. And I think that that's exactly right. So, and also I think that when I go and eat a Twix after this podcast, that is not making me fat, but there's something about the lifestyle that I'm choosing to eat candy during the day that might over time be less good for my health than if I were to choose not to eat candy. And so similarly, I think those plus ones, it's sort of like eating your vegetables, where doing one of them once isn't necessarily going to change the nature of your business. But the reason to be doing them is because it gets you reinforcement that doing this thing is having an impact, and it may be small impact, but it helps justify the work that you're putting in while you go figure out with your supplier, with your CFO, can I do this price test? How do I configure this? What is the right bounds and constraints that I should do when I set this up? That's going to be a lot more of a consideration than should I test 2 different forms of content in this section on my lander? And so that allows you to like get those quick wins, get that positive feedback, create the healthy lifestyle that you want while also chasing the things that are like actually going to be big, but longer term.
Yeah, when you said, "Hey, I'll live and die on the you got to chase the exponents," I tend to agree. A saying that I use a lot is, "You don't get to a billion adding by ones, but you also can't multiply zero." So, like, hey, if you're looking for like those big changes, but you can't get momentum on it, and there's no wins, and there's nothing like there's no progress, then you're not going anywhere. But if you only just find these like a line I love to say is, "Hey, has any business meaningfully changed by changing a button color or changing where something is on the page?" You will find wins. It will compound over time, like eating your vegetables, but one singular one is not going to change your business. It is the summation of all of them. So I do think that like you need to be doing all of these. I think that like maybe that's a good segue into how do you keep things in each of these swim lanes or buckets, and do any of these kind of interfere with one another?
Yeah. One thing we've been doing a lot of thinking about lately, and I'd be curious what other people do, so I can't say that I'm an expert on this, but is thinking about a roadmap and being a lot more disciplined about creating a roadmap and sticking to that roadmap. And I think a good roadmap is going to have things in each of these 3 categories. So you're going to have your plus ones, you're going to have your multiplications, you're going to have your exponential changes. And being able to prioritize what's at the top of the roadmap for each of those is a really important exercise. And then being able to like tackle them. And then on any given day, you should also ask yourself, do I have the capacity to do all of this? Or what capacity do I need? Do I need to work with an agency? Do I need to work with someone from IntelliJAMS? Do I need to hire someone internal to take on more of these things because I know that these are important, and be able to execute on this roadmap that we've built. So I think that building a roadmap is really important. I also think that making sure you have the capacity to execute on that roadmap is just as important.
Yeah. And I think like the way I kind of view this is some people, again, just like I get the question of like what to test, there's, hey, should I wait for this to end before I start the next thing? And the way I usually think about this, and you can agree or disagree, is like for those additions, like those smaller things, I personally am okay having those run while I'm testing something bigger, because like, hey, it's scoped to a specific page. Like when I look at the results of that, I'm kind of looking at it in a very specific spot, where when I'm doing something on the exponent side, I'm probably testing something, again, much bigger across the site, across the business, where it's like, hey, I can have a plus one going. I just need to be aware of it. I can even have a multiplier going and an exponent going, and kind of like always know on my roadmap what's coming next in each of these buckets, knowing that some of these things are going to take longer to conduct, get the results, move on to the next thing. So I can kind of like be cycling through my plus ones a lot faster. Hey, I have one going, I get to the next one, I get to the next one. My multipliers, probably like I'm going to keep cycling them. Probably happens a little slower than my plus ones. Again, traffic dependent. I'll link to an episode where we talked about statistical significance if people want to go give that a listen. And then on the exponent side is, hey, I'm testing like these bigger things. I wouldn't let a small plus one experiment interfere with you chasing something in the exponent camp. That's my personal philosophy, but I'm curious if you think anything different.
That's how I feel. I think that the rate limiter here is going to be capacity, and I think that don't let something in the plus one camp let you not run after the big things. There's also the expression about pebbles, big rocks, and sand. And if you fill the jar first with sand, you'll never have time for the big rocks. You have to put the big rocks in first and make the space for the big rocks. However, you're not filling a jar all the way with big rocks alone. And so I think that that's how I would think about your capacity, is like, there's going to come times in your day where you're blocked or you just want a quick win. Everyone wants one of those. And so I think that's where the balance comes from.
And in that jar analogy, it's hard to put the rocks in once the sand is there, like you were saying. So, hey, when you're thinking about the roadmap, ask some of those more high level questions. What's keeping me up at night? What's strategically important to the business? What does my boss care about, right? Like these higher level questions will help you try to figure out what those exponents or big rocks are going to be so that you can fill around it with sand and those plus ones. You're less likely to interfere with the big thing if you've already thought about what that is and and it's like underway and you can fill around it so as not to interfere with it.
Totally. I love how many metaphors we've had on this one pod alone.
There was a lot there. If basically what we're saying here to summarize this is when you're building your roadmap, think with a good framework. And this concept of having the 3 buckets is a great framework to think within to make sure that you're maximizing the value that you can create here. And if you want a refresher on this 3 bucket approach, I'll put a link to the GEM Academy where we have video classes that kind of break this down in even more detail if you're interested.
And another plug, if you need help executing against that roadmap or coming up with ideas, talk to us. We're always happy to help or put you in touch with someone who can help.
Absolutely.